Strawberry milkshake. Put a little bit of banana in it to add some flavor. No, you just made banana milkshake with some strawberry. That's what you have done. You've made pink banana milkshake.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Chef Tao's Croatian Kitchen. Today we'll be making Pivski Gulaš, or beef stew. Beer stew is a very hearty dish commonly found at beer halls or pivnica here in Croatia. It's basically very similar to Vinski Gulaš, which we did like way back when, with the notable difference of we're using beer instead of wine. Hence the name is different, right? That makes sense. All right.
What? The beer stew has beer? My mind is blown.
The other big difference from Vinski Gulaš is that I'm using pork instead of beef. There's really no reason why I'm using pork versus beef. To me, Pivski Gulaš uses pork, but if you want to use beef, you are more than welcome to sub that in. One of my favorite things about this dish is that it shows that beer can be used as an ingredient, just like wine. It's a really versatile ingredient that I feel like people don't use often enough, so this is a great way to introduce beer into your cooking. Plus, making this dish is a fun way to spice up maybe your weekly rotation of stews. Instead of using wine, just throw in some beer. And of course, save some for yourself that you can drink while you're eating and cooking. Because if you're not drinking while you're cooking, what's the point?
The point is you give me the beers.
I do have 2 glasses in the fridge for us.
There we go.
Beer is just liquid bread.
Also, a quick question about the beer. If we put a spray nozzle on it, does that turn into kaolin repellent?
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll jump into the ingredients. The biggest difference, like I've said, is we have beer instead of wine. And it does sort of matter which kind of beer you use. You really want something that you really like, as opposed to wine, where my advice is generally just drink something you like, but it's not something you really want to drink. Beer, you really want to use something that you do want to drink. Partially because beer is generally more economical, so you don't have to worry about getting something like super expensive that you like to put into your stew. And also, whatever the flavor of the beer is really going to come out in the stew, a lot more than wine. If you use like a red wine in a stew, it doesn't really matter what kind of red you use. It's all kind of going to taste generally the same. If you switch this up, so we're using a dark beer, and if you were to use a Pilsner, the whole flavor profile would be completely different. So we're using a dark beer because I like the flavor of a dark beer stew more than a Pilsner. Julia Child recommends a Pilsner, and I tried it, and it wasn't for me. Dark beer is my advice.
Get in the stew. Get in the stew.
No, that is a
Guinness
thing.
stew.
Like beef stew with Guinness.
Oh.
Yeah. Generally, yeah. Darker beers are generally better in my opinion, but if you really want to use a light beer, go ahead. I wouldn't use an IPA. I couldn't imagine having a stew and just tasting IPA the whole time.
What about the oyster stout from?
Yeah, our friend Kelson tried an oyster stout once, and it was okay. It didn't taste like oysters, but apparently they brewed it with like oyster shells, so that's what that was. It wasn't, bad.
Yeah, don't drink it if you got a seafood allergy.
Yeah, that's important.
I guess it kind of makes sense that the dark beer will have a completely different flavor profile than like a Pilsner, because it's the same with red wine or white wine. If I were to make a beef bourguignon with red wine, it would be a beef bourguignon. If I made it with white wine, it would be something completely different and taste like nothing like it.
It really does change up everything about the whole dish. And yeah, same thing with the beer, so good point there, Nick.
Woo! Nick has a point counter.
No.
For the meat, like I mentioned earlier, we are using pork. No real reason why we're using pork in lieu of, say, beef. This is just my preference. When you cut up the pork, make sure you have big chunks, about 1 inch cubed. I'm using pork shoulder because it has a lot of connective tissue and fat in it that will start to render out as it cooks. You want to avoid a leaner cut, especially for a stew. That's just general stew advice. You always want a tougher cut that benefits from a long cook time. We have some white sugar. This, like a tablespoon, we're going to add in just because the beer can be a little bit bitter sometimes, and the sugar will offset bitterness. A sweet offsets bitterness, so if something you taste is a little bitter in anything you're making, just throw a little bit of sugar into it, and it'll offset that imbalance of flavor. You may have noticed that there is no fat here, and that's because we have a bunch of cubed pancetta, and the pancetta has fat in it. So we're going to render out the fat from the pancetta and use that to cook our pork in. If you do end up running out of like fat while you're cooking, the pan goes dry, an extra knob of like say butter or lard is very helpful there. For our vegetables, we have our typical mirepoix, onion, carrot, and celery. I know my celery looks weird. That's because I have a hard time finding celery stalks, so I just buy a whole bunch of it and chop it up and freeze it. So that when it's frozen, totally fine to use frozen vegetables when you're making a stew. Everything cooks down and melds together, so you're not going to notice a difference in texture. Also have a bunch of garlic that I minced up. I never know how much garlic I use. Garlic you measure with your soul. We're up to spices. Paprika, salt, pepper, bay leaf, Dalmatian spices. Dalmatian spices, they're Dalmatian herbs. I hate how it's called like Dalmatian spices in Croatian because every time I say it, I think Dalmatian spice, but it's not. These aren't spices, they're herbs. And lastly, some flour that we'll use to thicken the stew. Is that all the ingredients? That was all the ingredients. All right. Everything's obviously already prepped, so we're gonna head on over to the stove where we'll start our cooking. We're over here at the stove, and I have my pancetta that I'm just going to throw into a cold pan, and we're gonna turn the fire on low. What we wanna do is very slowly render out all of the fat. So the pancetta gets 1, crispy, but 2, we have enough fat to cook in this pan. So this will take maybe like 5 to 10 minutes. So once the pancetta is all nicely browned and all the fat has rendered out into the pot, I removed it to the side where Nick and Violet are now just eating it. And we're going to brown our pork. So I have, as you can see, there's some paper towel there, so I wanted to dry it. Wetness is the antithesis of browning. So we're just going to put our pork right into the pancetta fat. There's no pancetta left. We're going to brown this quickly on all sides, and then we'll remove again to a side plate. And once one side is brown, we'll just flip over to get the other side. Caitlin is asking if we're going to put the pancetta back into the stew, and the answer is yes. I don't like to put it in while it's braising in the oven, because then the pancetta gets a little like chewy, and we spent so long trying to make it nice and crunchy, kind of defeats the purpose. So it's on a side bowl for now, and at the end we'll put it all back in. We can't really run this while we're filming because it's very loud, so it did get a little smoky in here, but that's fine. That means there's flavor. So now we're just going to go in with our onions, carrots, and celery. Then we're just going to mix together all of these vegetables and let them saute down about 5 to 7 minutes. We'll add some salt to really help bring out all of the water. And once the onions start to soften, we're going to make a little hole in the center and add in our garlic. And at this point, things start to get a little faster. So with the garlic, we're also going to add in some paprika. I think 2 teaspoons is good. Just mix this all together until the garlic and paprika become fragrant. About a minute. Delicious. And once you can smell everything, we'll add in the meat again. Make sure to get all the juices into the pot. Take flour, maybe 1, 2, that would smell 2, 3 tablespoons of flour. Oh my. Drop it right on top of your lid. And we'll start to mix all the flour together so it coats everything as even as you can get it. I forgot to mention this earlier, but we do have chicken stock. We're just going to add that in. Not huge. I like to do a small, like a shorter deglaze at the start when there's less liquid, just because it's easier to move everything out of the way, and then you can see what still needs to be scraped up. Because at this point, everything that's stuck on the bottom is still going to be burning, so you want to make sure you can scrape it up before it gets too burnt and imparts really bitter flavor. And now we'll add in our beer. You're going to want enough beer so you can just cover everything. This basically was a full liter of beer. And we'll just stir everything to combine. You could also, yes, make this gluten-free with gluten-free beer. I have in here my Dalmatian spices. I like to put it into this little, it's a coffee filter. We can easily take it out when we're done. And we're going to throw in maybe like 3 or 4 bay leaves. But these are kind of small. There you go. Let's add extra salt as well. like at this point where I start thinking, did I forget something? But I did not forget anything. I'll just stir to get the salt and pepper combined. And once this comes back up to a boil, we're going to turn the heat off and put it into an oven that has been preheated to 350 Fahrenheit, or I think that's like 175 Celsius. Oh, sugar. But I did not forget anything. I'm just gonna do like a little, something like that. You don't want to add too much. You don't want to make it too sweet. So at the end, if you're when you're tasting, you can always add more sugar. So when people say like season to taste, sugar is part of that seasoning. Once your fork can pierce the meat and it falls apart tender, then it is ready. This ended up taking close to around 2 hours, but 2 to 3 is the general time frame for how long this takes. If you're forking and it's not falling apart and it's been 2 hours, leave it in. Do not rush this step. Promise you will not regret that. Open up. So I did leave the what is it? The spice? No, not spices. The herbs. And I did it. The herb packet in here. You can pull it out as well, but I'm just going to serve directly into my bowl. If the sauce is too thin, you can strain everything out and let the sauce reduce until it coats the back of a spoon. You can put a line in the line stakes. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, let's go. Let's serve. Yeah, this is actually really hard. It's fine. All right. Ooh, this would be perfect with last week's episode. Maybe without the paprika. We put paprika on this. Yes, we did. I can see it. More of the sauce in there. And here we have our Pivski Gulash. Now I'm going to go ahead. I took a spoon so I can try the sauce, but I'm also going to use it to, I mean, it just falls right apart. Look at that. Not it. This is so tender. This is so tender. This is delicious. At this point, I just want to annoy Nick with it. It literally is just melting in my mouth. It's, there is no other word to describe how delicious. And this was Pivski Gulash. To all my subscribers, thank you very much for your support. I really do appreciate it. If you are not subscribed and you liked what you saw, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and as always, feel better back.
I was supposed to have put the pancetta in it.
We were, but I did not forget anything. Hello again. The pancetta has to go on top. Now, part of the problem of not leaving the pancetta in is that you forget that it is there. And also Nick and Kaylin just eat like half of it. So I'm just going to try the pancetta. It's so much better that way because it's still nice and crunchy. If you're still here, thank you very much. And I'll see you next week on Chef Tyler's Croatian Kitchen. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, what was that noise?